Hi, Kylie. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you here and hear all about your experience in Japan.
Yeah, Japan has been interesting. It was fun going to Fukuoka. It was quite different from the last couple of worlds that I had been to. So I'd been to Budapest in 2017 and then Gwangju in South Korea in 2019, and now obviously Fukuoka because we've waited a couple of years, obviously due to COVID. And yeah, it was quite different from the other ones, but a different experience. And I think you just manage to deal with whatever gets thrown your way, basically. So yeah, it's been fun.
Yeah, look, I think that's the only way you can approach the world champs, because when you put the traveling in and the change of food that you're eating and even the water that you're drinking, it makes a really big difference to your day-to-day life in your hometown.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I think when we were in Budapest, we had a slightly bigger place where we could go get, there was a bakery nearby and we could have our own breakfast, and you're still eating pretty much the way that you normally do. But this one, at this hotel that we stayed at, they did have breakfast that was provided, which had a little bit of Western food, mostly Asian food, which I love Asian food, but not what they are serving for breakfast. So luckily I was still able to find some toast, and I live on my Australian products of Milo and Vegemite, so they came with me, and they were probably my saviors in the mornings before going to swim, that's for sure.
Oh, how did you find the whole experience of because for those people who are listening who haven't been to a Worlds, warming up at a World Championships, it's like its own competition because you really struggle for lane space. How did you find that?
Yeah, well, this year there were two different pools that they had running. And unfortunately, one pool was for males and one pool was for females. And then they swapped them each day. So you did get to swim at both of those pools. It was just a shame that you weren't with teammates kind of, or the male teammates to be able to see what they were doing as well. So Messi, which the main pool, which was where the elites had their competition. They had a 50-meter pool, separate pool for warm up, which was probably not too bad to actually do your warm up in, but certainly not the same as going swimming training and having, four people in a lane. But then the other pool, it was niche, so it was probably almost an hour away by public transport from the main pool. And it had a 25-meter pool, and I'm going to say 17 or 18 people in a lane. So you were literally just almost touching people's toes. And then if people decided that they were going to do some drill with some kicking, it was near impossible. But and in that particular pool, that was where they even started the calling for events as well. So it was just jam-packed full of people. There were so many people. So I think if you went in thinking, I need to have a race warm-up, so I did know a race warm-up that I could do, but there's absolutely no way that you could actually do that. So it was more about really jumping in the pool and just getting your arms moving. And, if you could kind of leave a bit of a gap and do a little 12.5-meter sprint, then you might manage that. But if you wanted to do like a whole 25-meter sprint or something like that, it was just impossible to do. So, but anyhow, look, you manage with what you manage. And I did remember similar scenes at both other competitions as well. Probably in Budapest, because there were 4 different pools that they used, there was a little bit more space, but I'm sure if I went back and had a look at photos, it would be just equally as busy. But yeah, I mean, you just manage how you manage, basically.
Yeah. Did you supplement that sort of in-pool warm-up with any sort of dry land exercises or stretching out at all before swimming, or was
I wish I could say that I was professional enough to do that. No, I did do like a smidge of stretching, and that's only a few years ago. I've had a couple of shoulder surgeries on my right shoulder, and so since then I've been told, the physio has kind of said, basically getting a band and doing, these kind of shirt tears, I guess they call them, stretches. So I would do that every time before I got in the water. So at least, shoulders were warmed up a little bit. But as for even trying to do anything really dynamic or anything like that, it just didn't happen. There probably wasn't even really enough wall space if you wanted to, get your arm up against a wall and do that. You're hard pushed to be able to find anything like that. So you just as I said, deal with it as you deal with it, basically. So if you go in with an absolute plan, and you think that perhaps you won't perform if that plan doesn't go according, then you're in trouble. So I didn't really go in with a huge plan. I knew a race warm up if that was possible, but in the end, I probably did about maybe a quarter of it, and it was more just about getting wet and just getting a little bit of a feel for the water, basically. So
yeah. No, I think you've dealt with it beautifully, and you've explained it beautifully as well, because I think going to a Worlds like that, you just have to be very flexible and change plans and not get upset by things that you've got no control over.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, it's even comes down to thinking about your timing of getting there, getting to a place as well. So you need to look at, luckily, one great thing was that they were able to provide us with approximate times for when your event would start, and they were pretty close, pretty spot on. So you could use that fairly accurately. But as I said, like the Nishi pool was almost an hour away, and that was the one that I swam at more frequently than the other. So you had to kind of think about, okay, well, if I would normally be there 2 hours before, it's going to take an hour, so I need to think about an hour before that. And well, if I miss something, or the trains are busy or the bus is busy, then I need another little bit of time before that. So that part kind of really enters into your morning thinking every morning. And so I guess once the competition was over, it was like, oh, I don't have to think for a little bit, until the next bit of the holiday, where you then have to go, oh God, where am I going now? And how do I get there? And where are we staying? But, you weren't having to think the swimming stuff. But I mean, you cope. But I think if you were really, if you needed everything to be just so for things to work out, you'd be in a little bit of trouble, because it just doesn't work that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
What individual events did you enter into?
So I did the 50, 100 and 200 backstroke, and then I did the 50 freestyle and the 50 fly as well.
Yes.
Yeah, so they were good events. Like, probably in previous Worlds I would have been absolutely ecstatic with my results, and I was really happy with how I went this time. As I said to you before, I've had a couple of shoulder surgeries. For me to even be able to swim, as far as I'm concerned, is great, and still to be able to perform at the level that I performed at was really great. So the first event that I had was the 200 backstroke, and I was lucky enough to come away with a silver medal, and that was a shock of all shocks for me. So last year, or not last year, sorry, the last Worlds at Gwangju, I think I came fourth in that event. And when I was lining up, I remembered the German girl that was beside me in the race, and she was beside me again. And I thought, oh, don't go too hard, because she just passed me in the last 10 meters in Gwangju. And so at the 100-meter mark, I thought, oh, I'm still ahead. Oh God, I hope I haven't gone too hard. But then when I did the last turn, probably did something you should never ever do, but the scoreboard was so big that you could see very, very clearly. And so I was just like, just hold on. So yeah, so that was really exciting, because I was this close to pulling out, because the 200 is pretty painful, and I thought, I just don't want to do it. But thank goodness I did it, because that ended up being my best result. So so that was really good. And then the other two backstrokes, I think both the 100 and the 50 were both fourths. So just missed that podium for both of those. Yes. And then the freestyle I think might have been fifth, and then the fly was 10th or something, I think. So but anyhow, it was good, and times were not PBs, but I kind of go every new year as a PB, so I think so too. Yes. And last year, when I competed at Pan Pacs down the Gold Coast, it was the first time I'd competed since Gwangju, so it was it was a long, for me, it was a long time of not having done any racing. And I've never felt so nervous in my life. So it was this horrible feeling. And I got that again with this one, which I suppose you should, like, it's a big event. But the times were faster than I did down in Southport. So for me, I was happy about that. So that was positive. So really good.
Yeah, I mean, you can't ask for more than that. You improved on your PBs from last year, and I think, as you say, as you age up in masters, I think each year is a fresh start, and other life experiences that come in, or impact, like you've said, like injuries, they can really affect those PBs as well.
Yes, yeah, I think so. I think probably in Guangzhou I did far better than what I ever anticipated, and the times were, faster than I'd done for years and years and years. So you hope that you're going to keep going, but then I remember even sending a text to the physio that I've been working with the surgeon, going, hey, I got these results. The times are pretty good, really, because most of them were all the backstrokes were Queensland records, so they were obviously faster than what I'd done. But I said, I've been out of the water all of that time, and I'm 4 years older. So, so you do have to put a little bit of age into the factor, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely. How did you injure your shoulder? Was it through swimming or through something else?
It probably was swimming, but it was interesting because when it actually got at its worst was during COVID. So I have in my thinking, and I don't know whether it's right or wrong, I'm sure doctors could tell me that I'm totally wrong, but I feel like when we had to stop doing all the swimming, like all the muscles in my shoulder weren't being used as much, and I think weren't supporting it. So then it was just bursitis and tendonitis in it, and there was just no movement in it, basically. So tried some cortisone injections, tried a hydrodilation to it, and nothing really made much of a difference. So I had a surgery to clean it all out, basically. So they shaved the bone and cleaned the bursa, but then the doctor felt that it was what do you call it, it was moving too easily, so then he tightened it for a little bit as well. But unfortunately, even after lots of physio and lots of hard work, I just couldn't get it released. So 6 months later, I went and had another one, and it was just all scar tissue. So I think my body had just scarred it up straight away, probably. So scar tissue was all released, and then it was straight into work again to try and get it moving. And it's taken a long time, but it's come back. Probably Pan Pacs in November last year was the first time I started diving, and then a little bit just before this competition was doing more diving. And yes, and it's strong. Like, I know that it's super strong, so there's no problems with it, but the dynamic movement of diving and then like that pushback straight away, that kind of aggravates it a little bit. But I have a break from that for a little while now. So,
of course,
from that dynamicness, the swimming's fine. It's just that dynamicness. So but anyhow, so come back from that. So I'm super duper grateful that that all worked out, because swimming is is my main form of exercise and the thing that I love to do. So so it's been good. It's been a relief.
Absolutely. I mean, fantastic recovery for you from that very pretty serious injury. Has it affected, I mean, you said you've got good strength. Has it affected the flexibility in the water in your strokes? Have you had to adjust your strokes?
Like initially, I think I've got pretty good flexibility, and most of it really has come back, I think. The tester is always when they put your arm up. When they put your arm up behind your back, to see what it's doing behind there, and it's pretty good. I don't think it won't ever be as perfect as what it was, but I can do what I need to do. Like, I don't think it stops me from doing anything. I would never use that as an excuse, because it's I can swim. So yeah, it's fine. It's fine.
Now, I wanted to ask you about another very exciting thing that happened to you in Fukuoka, because you had your individual events, but you also were part of a very special relay. Do you want to tell everyone about that and how you got on that very special relay?
How it all came about.
Yeah.
So the relay was all about swimming with Susie O'Neill. So that was fabulous. So for those of you who are not in Brisbane and listening to this, Nova have the Ash Lutzy and Susie O'Neill program that they run in the mornings, and they had decided for Susie's 50th birthday that they wanted to do something really special. And the producer kind of came up with this idea of, let's see if she'd be interested in swimming at the World Championships, because it was, I think, nearly 20 years to, you know, when she'd actually swum her last race, was pretty close to it. And luckily for them, she agreed to it. And luckily for me, she agreed to it. And so I actually had friends that tagged me in the Instagram posts when this competition came up. So I didn't know a lot about it, but basically you had to put in an entry and, you know, a few words about this and a few words about that, and had to be available for, you know, a couple of different swims. And I thought, oh well, I'll throw my hat in and we'll see what happens. And I think I was at school probably a week and a half or 2 weeks later. And I saw I had a missed call, and my niece goes to my school, and she was actually in my office at that time. And I said, oh God, I've just had a missed call from Nova. And at that point started feeling slightly sick. and then not long after, I received a text message to say, you know, really, can you contact us pretty urgently, because we'd like to speak. So in the end, what it ended up being was that there were 5 people that were selected to swim in a swim off. And so you had to agree that, you know, you were available to do that. But before that, you had to go and do an on-air interview at the station. Well, I think, you know, I can speak in front of 1,000 people at school, but that's probably the most nervous that I've ever been for a long, long time, that's for sure. And I remember, I mean, I know Susie gets quite nervous about things, but I remember her saying to me at the studio, well, that's the price you pay for the glory of things, basically. And I was like, yeah, that's true. So yes, I did that. Sorry, I keep getting things popping up. I did that. And then I think the following day or a couple of days later was the swim off, and school were gracious enough to let me, you know, go in it and have that time off. And so we went to Centenary Pool, and, you know, there was a bit of a hoo-ha about it all, obviously, because I mean, it was a big media thing. And I really didn't have much of an idea of what to expect. I knew a couple of the girls that were in the race, so I had already found out some names, so I knew kind of what I was up against, but had no idea how I would go. And, you know, basically it was winner takes all. So yeah, did the race, and I was lucky enough to win that race. Probably a little naively, I obviously hadn't read all the ins and outs. I basically thought the competition was, you know, to swim a relay with Susie. And as I was already going, thought, well, that's fabulous. But it ended up that there were flights and there was accommodation and all this wonderful thing that ended up being associated with it as well, which was really great. I guess probably one of the things is I was lucky that I did know, you know, coincidentally knew Susie from a little bit of the swimming world, but also her daughter had gone to the same school where I teach at. So I'd known her through that, and then lots of other little connections. And then my partner, Casey, he used to be her swimming partner, essentially, back in the 2000 Olympics era. So just having that little connection was really great. And then there ended up being lots of little things that came along in the weeks after that, which were, you know, ended up being really exciting. And I think just as exciting for all the kids at school. So at my school at All Hallows, I'm head of year 5 and 6. So we've got, you know, the younger girls, and we start at grade 5. So I think they felt like it was part of they were winning as well. And so, it was funny because each day there'd be something on the radio about it, and the girls would come into my office and, oh, they talked about you today. Oh, okay, what did they say today? So, so it was nice to kind of have that whole support along the way as well. And so we did all sorts of different things that, kind of unexpected things that were, you'd probably say it was more for the media, but they were just awesome experiences. So one day we went out to Chandler, and we had the head Australian swim coach was there with a couple of the one of the QAS scientists, and then Jess Coronis, who's the Australian swim main performance scientist, and they were working on changeovers with us. And really getting that instant feedback. So they were videoing things, and we could see it on the big screen straight away. And possibly if we did that every day for 3 or 4 weeks, it might have been better than just the one session. But that was great. And then another day we went out to the QAS, so Queensland Academy of Sport, and worked with some of their scientists. And it was more kind of looking at the different types of training, I guess, that the elite sports people do. And so, I remember Ash and Susie were in the, well, it's not a hyperbaric chamber, but it's essentially mirror imaging high altitude training. So they were doing some bike riding in there to see what that felt like. I did some shoulder flexibility stuff to see what, the strength in things there. And then we went into one of their pools where you do diving, and you can see every little tiny bit of your dive. So I can see why, I often wonder how our athletes continue to improve their times. But you can see with the scientific progress that is happening, you can see why it happens, because they can just get down to the minutest details to see what they need to do to improve. Mm. A bit late for all of us,
but, never too late.
But no, yeah. But it was really cool to see those kinds of things. And then we had the added bonus of having team uniforms and all sorts of things, which was lovely to be involved in that. And then Susie and then one of the other fellows, Mitch Lewis, came out and did an assembly with our girls. So I was doing it all about women in sport, which worked in perfectly with the Matildas and, what I was doing, and really that idea of getting kids to continue doing sport beyond that 15, 16 age group. So having Susie come out and talk a little bit of her story as well, just added to the excitement of everything. So that was all the lead up to it, which was really great. Unfortunately, because we had already purchased our tickets, we didn't fly with the team. So we were already there. And then the build up. So Nova actually took across Susie and the two other fellows, Ash and Lutzley, that were in the team, and then another 5 people, because they were still producing their show each day.
Wow.
But it just added to the entertainment of the relay, and heavens, Susie getting the world record, in her individual 50 fly. It was just exciting to be part of all of that, and that added to the extra atmosphere, I think. And even the fact, if anyone that's listening has seen any of the footage of that, we had a mascot there, and it was entertaining. So I think it entertained the people at the pool as well when they saw this dugong, life-size dugong arriving, and he managed to do his own rendition of Dean Boxall when Susie won the world record. So it was fun. The saddest part was 0.01 is what we missed out on podium by. So we came 4th.
So close.
So close. Yeah, couldn't have been any closer. But the experience was fabulous, and I think that all of them that were there, really had a great time as well. So yeah, I probably, before I came over had to keep pinching myself, kind of saying, how did this happen? Like, yeah, it's just that they're not everyday things that happen. So it
No.
certainly has been an entertaining couple of months, that's for sure.
I'm
Yeah.
sure. And having that sort of experience, I know you mentioned you knew Susie a little bit beforehand, but seeing her up close at a swim meet and coming up to that world record in the 50 fly for the 50 to 54 year age group, what did you sort of take away from the way she prepares for that? How did she approach it?
Well, the truth,
Yeah, give us the truth.
yeah, well, and look, she has spoken about this on the radio, so I'm not really saying very much. She was so nervous, and I guess because she hasn't swum since for 20 years. Well, hasn't competed, not swum. She's swum a lot, but she hasn't competed for 20 years. And I think when she competed back in the Olympics, there was always someone directing her where to go, telling her what to do, telling her how to prepare. That was probably a bit of me in this situation, like, because I had been doing that more frequently and in recent times, so talking about when do we think we need to leave? Like, when should we start heading to marshalling? What should we be doing now? Probably for her, doing her race warm-up, she did a 200-meter swim, jumped out, and she was done, like, so, I mean, I think, if you've got it, you've got it, and she is just so incredibly naturally talented. But she was super nervous beforehand. So the 50 fly was interesting because there were a lot of people obviously waiting to go through in that racing, and they called our heat numbers. And for some reason, around the corner when they called it, we just had to move so quickly. So it was almost a bit of a whirlwind, whereas at the other pool, you sat down in some seats and then you moved forward to the next lot of seats and then you moved forward. Whereas this time it felt like you almost ran onto pool deck. And Susie had some goggles that were new goggles to her that have the nose piece that comes, like the part of the goggle comes off the nose piece, and that was undone. And her hands were shaking so much that she couldn't actually put them together. So luckily there was someone there that, because I was in the heat before, so I wasn't beside her then, that could actually put it together.
Oh dear.
And then her main competitor, Michelle from Great Britain, was kind of there going, calm down, it's okay. So she had these lovely people that, had been doing a lot of competing and, knowing the bigness of it all, that were, helping her along at the time as well. So I think once she got to the relay, there was still the nerves there, but because there were the four of us together, it wasn't as bad as that individual one, and more rode on that individual one for her, as much as it was all about the relay for the rest of us. It really was that individual one, and like trying to get that world record. So yeah, it was fabulous that it all worked out. It was so good. So yeah.
Yeah, I can't imagine the kind of pressure she probably would have put on herself more than anyone else, just thinking she had to live up to what she was.
Yeah, possibly. Yeah, she didn't really speak a lot about it. I think it was, she'll just go and she'll do. I'm sure there was that internal, and I'm sure there, once a competitor, always a competitor. She didn't want to get beaten. So,
I'm sure.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think it was probably relief for everyone else around her, her workmates, that it all worked out the way that they hoped that it would work out. I think that relief was there for all of them, that's for sure. But yeah, it was certainly something that was really great to be part of. I remember being at the Sydney Olympics, being there watching her races live. So it was, it was good to be, part of the inner team, I guess you would say. It was really exciting.
Absolutely. Yeah, I was at the finals night, the night she won the 200 freestyle in Sydney.
Yeah.
That was amazing. Fantastic.
So exciting. Yeah, so exciting. And look, it wasn't on that scale, but it was just as exciting, the other day. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Let's focus back in on you. Talk us through a week of your training. Now, obviously you're you're still in Japan, so you're not training, but take us back to a few weeks beforehand. What's a typical training week look like for you?
So I normally will swim 5 times a week. So I swim Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, have a break Thursday, and then Friday, Saturday. So the weekdays are just 1 hour session, and whatever the coach puts up, that's what I do. And it's probably normally on a Monday it might be a little bit longer. Tuesday's probably a bit more sprint oriented. And then Wednesday, Friday a bit of a mix, and then Saturdays we'll normally do an hour and a half. So it's a much longer session. So during the week it's closer to only about 3K, and then on the Saturday it might go up to about 4.5K probably. And then Casey and I were then going to the gym afterwards on a Saturday to try and do a little bit of strength stuff as well. Probably it's not in hindsight, I knew it before I went. I know that probably what made the difference before Gwangju, there were 2 things that I was doing before Gwangju that I didn't do this time. Number one was running the Kangaroo Cliff stairs. So we used to, there's some quite steep stairs there, and we used to run up and down those a few times on a Tuesday after swimming. And then the other thing that I used to do was that I would do some chin-ups before every session. But we've changed pools, and there's just not the location at this new pool to be able to set up something to do that. But I do believe that certainly for my butterfly in Gwangju, like that made all the difference, doing those chin-ups. So perhaps if I look towards Singapore, maybe I'll try and think about that again into the future. And I think, I love doing medley, obviously, because I'm doing a lot of backstrokes. So I do like to do a fair bit of medley. So, I will often, depending on what the set is, I might, throw in medley rather than doing freestyle, or throw in backstroke, or, put my fins on and do a backstroke set with everyone. And then probably the other thing that I know that I need to do a bit more of is kick, knowing how my legs got in a couple of those races. I need to do a lot more kick, that's for sure. But yeah, look, I guess with the training, I'm not I train hard, do whatever I'm supposed to do, but it's not the be all and end all in life for me. Like I do it as exercise. And I do it as, part of that morning routine. And the other thing for me is I just love that social aspect in the mornings, so we start at 5 o'clock in the morning. And the squad that I'm in now is called the Swim Academy, which is at Stuart Homer Girls' School up on a hill in Brisbane. And they're a 25-metre pool, but it's got 13 lanes.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And they're full. Like, there are so many adult swimmers there. It's just like, it's so good to see the number of people, and the variety of ability is, from, past elite athletes. So we've got a couple of past elite athletes that are swimming there, all the way to, we're just starting to swim basically. And so those mornings are great because you see lots of people, you start with a smile, you start with some exercise, and then go to work. So it's great. I love it. Yeah. Otherwise I wouldn't be doing it.
Oh, absolutely. And it's so great in Queensland because it's light in the morning.
Yeah.
And so you can get up and you can go, and you can start your day. Like, I know when I do those times in Melbourne, it's pitch black and it's 3 degrees.
Yeah, certainly. Look, I think winter is definitely a struggle, but that's why I'm very much about that being a habit.
Yes.
So that alarm goes off, I allow myself 1 minute, and then the feet are on the ground.
Yes.
I've got the car already packed, ready to go. So it's just a matter of putting togs on and, grabbing my lunch, and then, out the door basically. Because I think if if you let yourself think about how dark it is, how cold it is, and you have that one sleep in, then you go, then I'll have another sleep in, and then, hey, I might come back in a month.
Yes.
And I've never been very good at doing that, so I just keep going basically.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's the key. The key is consistency and routine.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you've got people that are there that like almost rely on you, like
Yeah.
or you can say to them, hey, where were you yesterday? Like, why weren't you here?
Yeah.
Or you think, oh God, they know that they're expecting me to be there. I better go there. So yeah, and it's great. The coach that we've got at the moment, Pete, he's this really vibrant, enthusiastic, not a lifetime coacher. Like, that's not his background. He comes from a law background, but he's doing this for the love of it.
Right.
And to have someone who knows everyone's name and, has this big smile and a good morning every morning is, it's the way you want to start a day, basically. It's great.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think you're right. You bond with those people that you're there in those early morning swims with. Absolutely.
Yeah, you really do. And it's interesting because I was at the same same pool and essentially similar squad for probably 12, 14 years, I would say. And then obviously COVID came and there was a change in coaches at the pool that I was at, and they really were not into masters very much. And I kind of we figured rather than complaining about it, let's find somewhere else. And luckily we did, because the whole thing just disbanded basically, which was sad after such a long time.
Yes.
But we ended up at this new pool and new swim squad, and there's such a social group of people. And I remember last year, we had the annual 100 hundreds, which no, I don't do. I don't want to put that pressure on my shoulder, but I think I got through about 80 of them. But then they have a long lunch afterwards, and, so it's this social aspect. But, I had these two ladies that I didn't know from bar of soap, because you can't get to actually know everyone because it's such a big pool. And these two ladies came up on either side of me, and I thought, God, what is happening? Who are these people? And they're like, we think you'll be good to play water polo. Can you join us at water polo at Panpax? And then suddenly here's this new whole huge friendship group of people, that you now have this bond with these other people that, so yeah, went on to do, play water polo with them. And I hadn't played for years and years and years. And most of them had never played at all. So it was a really fun thing to do. It was a really bonding thing to do. And, since then been in ocean races with them and, just done odd other things, which have been really fun. But it does show you that social element is so, so important. And, when you hear and see people that are, a bit down in the dumps sometimes, and you talk about, get out and do some exercise. But if you can get out to do some exercise and find some like-minded people, I think they just help you keep going. So yeah, so it's been a great move for us. So yeah, a whole heap of new people into our lives, which is great.
Oh, it's fantastic. It's great to hear. I can hear how excited you are about it. Just explaining it. You're very passionate about it. Yeah.
Yeah, I am, because I think I don't think it comes along those kind of things don't come along all the time. And I keep saying to the coach, and his wife, what you have created is so good, because it is I mean, you talk about a masters community, like it is a community. And look, most of those people don't compete at all, but we're gradually getting more and more interested in it. And I remember when I was sitting around the table with all of these ladies at Panpax and said, you should consider Worlds. And they're like, no, couldn't do that. And I pulled up the qualifying times, and they went, we could make them. I went, yes, you could. So, that's going to be my little project for the next little bit, to see if I can encourage any along. But some of them have started coming to the odd Masters Carnival. Not that I actually don't do very many Masters Carnivals, so I'm not into, competing every other weekend. But in encouraging these others to come, I'll probably do a couple more. But yeah, it's good to have other people on board, basically, and them get to see the amazingness of what it is. Because I look at some of those carnivals and think, God, will I still be swimming when I'm 80 something or 90 something, like that these people that are still going. And it's quite inspiring, because I think sometimes even when I stand up on a block every so often and think, oh God, I'm a bit wobbly.
Yes,
and then you think there's
exactly.
a 90-year-old and they're going to dive off the block. That's
I know.
crazy. Yeah.
And even to
cool.
think about their energy levels, because I get so tired now. Imagine what
Yeah.
it's like racing when you're 85 or 90.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's amazing. It is amazing. So yeah.
Very inspiring. Can you tell us, or can you share with us a typical workout that you would do? I know you said about 3K during the week and a bit longer on the weekends, but sort of what kind of warm up do you do? Main set? Do you do a lot of drills?
Yeah, so
idea?
We'll always do a bit of a warm up with some fins on to start off with. And it probably might be up to about, let's say 600, maybe about 600. And so it might be, it might be a couple of 100s, or it might be, swim, kick, pull, IM, pull, or something like that. Anything to make it up to that. We're starting to introduce more drills into the squad, so that wasn't something that they had done a lot of, so we've been introducing a few more of those kind of drills. I'm not a breaststroker, but all the other drills, like, so whether it's a bit of catch up, or well, not that that's the greatest drill either, is it? But single arm, or a bit of scull, backstroke where you've got it, vertically up to the sky and pulling around and making sure you're getting rotation. So those kind of drills. And then main set would probably, 600 is probably I'm going to say, 1.2, 1.3 probably. And definitely just depends on what the day is. So it might be 15 100s that you just want to hold on the same pace, or it might be 6 100s free, then 6 100s of pull, 6 100s free if it was a longer kind of set. If we're throwing in IMs, it might be anything from 200 IMs to 100 IMs to 75s, where you're just doing switch arounds. A bit of kick, but as I said earlier, we haven't probably been doing as much kick as we possibly should to really get the legs strengthening. And then just a warm down will just usually be 100 or 200, like that. I mean, I'm a big fan, even though I've had my shoulder done, I am a big fan of paddles and pull buoy. I do have, I still have a lot of strength for that kind of thing, so I do enjoy a paddle set. I find that easier than just a normal freestyle set. So that's quite good. But all sorts. We've really had a really mixed bag of sets. The other place that I do a lot of swimming at on the school holidays is up at Noosa. And so Noosa Aquatic Centre, and most of those sessions are usually closer to an hour and a half, and theirs is probably a little bit more structured, where that it will always be about a K and a half is going to be your warm-up, and that will be a lot of drills in that, and then it'll be usually probably a 2K main set, whether it's, depending on who's taking it, whether it's 200s, 100s, 50s, like it's really mixed bag. And then Wednesdays up there, they have their main set's always done with a towel. So you've got pull buoy and your band with the towel hanging off the back. So I enjoy that because it's a 50-meter pool as well. So it's good just to get some of that, that big stretch out basically as well. So
yes,
all sorts of sessions, all sorts of sets, really.
Yes, eclectic. I like it.
Yeah, it is. And look, some would argue we probably use too much gear sometimes and you're swapping and changing, but I think when you've done a lot of the same for a long time, it's good to have, a really good change up basically. So, I've really enjoyed that.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I know that you're very well known for your sprinting and like the 50-meter races. How do you find the difference in training between those 50s up to that 200 backstroke?
The 200 backstrokes, just good luck.
I'm sure it's more than that.
Yeah, well, look, I probably in more recent times, that 50 freestyle has got quicker and quicker, and likewise the backstroke and the fly not so much this year, but previous to my shoulder surgeries, the fly had got quite quick. My first ever Australian record was in that 50 fly, so it was quite surprising. And I don't know, I honestly don't specifically train for doing that 200 backstrokes, so I don't know whether it's just through the years of repetitive swimming that I still managed to do it and managed to go okay in it. I'm probably more mindful of trying to get more hundreds in to make sure I'm overdoing the 50. Nothing truly specific for the 200.
Interesting.
Probably, as I said to you earlier, I'm not super professional with all the ins and outs of the, like the really technical of swimming. Like, I think you can speak to a lot of people, even at this master's level, that have a lot of that technical swimming behind them. But I really don't really have that behind me. So, probably as a younger athlete at school, I was a school swimmer. I wasn't in that elite level. So any of the training that I've ever done, even though it's been targeted training and, I've always had good coaches, it's never anyone or me going, I need to do this specifically for a 200 backstroke, or I need this specifically for a 100 backstroke. It's just, I've been lucky that I've been able to manage both of them. Probably leading into Guangzhou, though, we did a lot of sprint work, and a lot of really short, sharp, very skill specific stuff. And that's probably what really got me into then being quicker at the sprints. When I first started back at Masters meets, there was no way that I was getting anywhere close to breaking 30 for a 50 freestyle, whereas, I can reasonably consistently still do that these days. And I think that's a bit more of that there has been some of that targeted sprint training. And I think I'm just lucky it's come together.
Yeah. And I think you're a racer. I think that's you can have all that technical knowledge and you can do it well in training, but when you get up on the blocks, you've got to be a racer, and you obviously are one.
Yeah, I think so. Look, when I compare myself to some of the elite that I know that are, I'm like, oh God, just let them beat you. Don't be in that much pain. But I think, I would say that people that can out-train me, even though I think that I train pretty hard, but there are people that can out-train me, I could probably get up and beat them in a race. Yep. Because that's what I do,
Yes. I understand.
Yeah. So yes, there must be some element of that racer in there. And I'd probably never say that I'm outwardly competitive, but I'm obviously very inwardly competitive. So yes. Yeah.
That's nice.
Yeah.
Well, Kylie, everyone that I have on the podcast, I really like to ask them the deep dive 5 questions about their swimming. It's a bit of a swimming snapshot to give everyone a bit of an idea. So I wanted to know your favorite pool that you've ever swum at.
That I've ever swum at.
Yes.
I'm going to have to say, because of my 50 fly, the Guangzhou pool, the 50-meter pool there that we swam in for Worlds. Yeah.
Fantastic. Very nice. And how about your favorite freestyle drill?
Oh, favorite freestyle drill. I'm going to say kind of like fingertip drag drill, but where more of your hand is under the water, so that you're really getting that push through. Yeah.
Yeah. So sort of like a midway.
Yeah, midway, if not even a little bit higher. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Nice one.
Good resistance.
Yeah. No, that's good. I know you might not want to answer this on the food that you've had in Japan, but what's your favorite pre-race snack that you normally have?
A pre-race snack. I honestly am not very good I've discovered in recent times at eating very much before a race. So if it's early enough, I will always have try and have my normal breakfast, which would be toast and a Milo. And then if I'm racing, I usually will just take some snakes with me. It's the only thing I can really get down. So yeah, that's not good nutrition wise, but it gives you a little bit of sugar hit, I suppose.
Absolutely. How about your favorite training set?
Oh, favorite training set. That's a good one. I should have prepared this one. I'm going to say I do love when we're doing, sprints. So it would be, so we might do, dive 25s, dive 12 and a halves, just dive and 3 strokes. I do really love that. So I love that. That's number one.
Yep.
And then number 2, any set that uses pull buoy and paddles.
That's good. You don't find it hurts your shoulders?
No, I used to years ago, but even after this shoulder, I reckon I probably have better technique while I'm using it. Because those yellow paddles that don't have the bands across, and so if you're not holding them properly, you'll lose, and you drop your elbow, you'll lose them. So yeah, I wonder whether I have better technique doing that, and the pull buoy just holds me up that little bit higher, so I'm on top of the water. So yeah, it's good. Yeah. And I've got one of the old school pull buoys, those gold, the old white pull buoys that they just don't make anymore. So yes, that's the gold pull buoy.
I lost mine and I loved it so much.
No one will ever understand that's not around our era, or probably even for the 10 or 20 years later, understand what it's like to be when you say I lost my pull buoy and how devastating that is. I
know. I changed coaches, and when I changed coaches, they used to put their equipment in this big cage and leave it at the pool. And it just disappeared into the effort of the cage. I don't know where it went, but they used
because someone saw it and they liked it.
I know, but it was molded to my body. I really liked it.
I love my white pull buoy.
Yes, and it's got no mold on it or anything.
No, mine's pretty good actually.
Good.
I think because it's been used just so often all the time, and if it had have sat in a cupboard for a year or so, I think it would have. But no, it's still in pristine condition.
I'd like a photo, please.
Yeah, for sure.
And if you were going to create a fantasy mixed freestyle relay, and it can be past or present swimmers, who would you put on that relay?
I think I've got to put Susie on, because that's who was in that last one. And so, yeah, I think definitely her. I think possibly, Kyle Chalmers would be an interesting one to be on there. And then who would I say as another male sprinter? I don't think he's really got the 50 sprint, but I think Ian Thorpe, just as a legendary swimming person.
Yes.
Yeah. It might not be the quickest of a relay, but yeah, I think when you think think back to some of those amazing swimmers, that would be really cool. Really cool. Yeah.
And how about another lady to go on?
Oh, another lady. Oh, sorry, I was put myself in there. Another lady. I was always a huge fan of Jodie Henry. I don't think she stuck around for long enough. Yes. So yeah, Jodie Henry, definitely.
It was a great swimmer, wasn't she?
Yeah, absolutely.
3 gold, didn't she get at in Athens?
Yeah, I can't remember, but she, amazing swimmer, and so it was sad that she left so early. But she went and married a Brisbane Lions player. So
I know, and I think she's actually back working for Swimming Australia now as a wellbeing manager.
Oh, yeah, good one. Yeah,
so she's still around. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah. Well, Kylie, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been really lovely connecting with you and hearing all about your experience in Fukuoka, and happy travels, because I know you're off to Italy. Did you
Italy next?
Yes. Did you want to share with everyone what you're doing there?
Yeah, so Italy is next. So I leave there tomorrow from Japan to go there tomorrow morning, and fly into Milan, and then heading over to Sardinia, and then doing a swim trek in Sardinia, and it's called the Long Swims swim trek. So I think we're doing up to 7 kilometers a day for the week, but that's over a couple of swim sessions, and I'm really looking forward to it because it's not racing, it's just swimming. And I have been on one of their swim treks before, and it was really good fun, and it's just such an interesting way of seeing a different part of the world. So yeah, doing that, and then having some other downtime in Sorrento, and then going over to the east side, over to Puglia region, and we're doing a bike riding tour for 4 or 5 days.
Oh, lovely.
So I haven't done much bike riding, and did some bike riding in Lake Kawagachi a few days ago, and my legs killed me. And I think this one's up to about 40 kilometers a day. So we'll see how it goes. But it's supposed to be absolutely spectacular area over there. So yeah, so that's the remainder of my holiday, and then back to Brisbane about the 20th, I think, of September. Finish the holidays. Cross our fingers that the Brisbane Lions make the grand final, and then back for 4th term of school at the beginning of October. Yeah,
lovely.
So it'll be great.
Yeah. Well, safe travels, and
thank you.
Lovely catching up with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Danielle, and inviting me to be part of this. I've certainly seen quite a few different podcasts you've done, and Jill O'Mara is a good friend. So it was interesting hearing her podcast after she'd returned from Egypt, and all her bits and pieces with her fin swimming as well as her normal swimming. So yeah, it was delightful to be able to do a similar thing with you as well. So thank you.
Fantastic. Okay, take care, Kylie.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye.